Blowhigh, defender of trans rights, the official, unofficial, trans mascot is kind of ready. You ready? I'm not. Hey Spuds, it's Jamie. Welcome back to another video. First on our channel. I don't know, but welcome either way. I'm very glad to have you here. For anybody new, my name is Jamie. I'm a trans man. Hello. I make a lot of content about trans things and breaking down transphobia and some other fun content. So if you're new or not new, but you're not subscribed, maybe go check it out, but there's no pressure. And me being trans is very relevant to today's video, because essentially we're going to be talking about someone who's recently come out in the news as having faked coming out as trans. They came out as a trans woman, but they are not actually trans, they are a cis man, and he faked being trans. I know. Over the past week or so, there's been headlines including Bachelor Nation's Josh Seiter faked being transgender as experiment. Bachelor Nation's Josh Seiter says he pretended to be transgender as an experiment. Josh Seiter admits faking transgender identity in social experiment to expose left's gullibility. I was seeing these headlines, I was seeing this story do the rounds on social media, I was very intrigued and also very confused about what the hell was going on, so I did a little bit of extra reading and decided I maybe wanted to make a video on it. Definitely wanted to make a video on it, which is why we're here today. Hello. Firstly, I had no idea who he was before this. I had no idea about the show he was on. I've never seen it. The reports I read said he was on The Bachelorette and was eliminated during week 1. Cool, good for you. I don't really know what that means. Anyway, he came out as transgender in May this year, and he did so via a screenshot of a text post on Instagram, which said, "Dear warriors, I have struggled with my gender identity and resulting feelings of guilt and shame for as long as I can remember. I spent the last 3 decades taking great pains to keep this side of me private. I felt I had no choice given my upbringing in a strictly religious, conservative family. As I've gotten older, I've tried my hardest to project the expected image of a strong, masculine son and brother. However, I no longer want to hide who I am, and I no longer want to deal with the mental turmoil that comes with suppressing such an important of me, I assume part of me. So I ask for your thoughts and prayers and patience as I transition. I know it will take time for everyone, including myself, to adjust. I simply ask that you accept me now, just as you did before. I love you all, Jay." Honestly, to me, that reads like a very legitimate coming out. It was expressing feelings from childhood to now and experiences that are not uncommon within the trans community. He even touched upon being brought up in a religious and conservative household, which will really hit home for a lot of trans people, a lot of LGBT plus people reading that post, and I can definitely see why this would have come across as genuine at the time. It really does feel like he must have researched a lot what to say in a coming out post, or read a lot of other people's coming out posts and kind of taken bits and pieces. And then since this post, he proceeded to make content, like a lot of content, around being trans for the next 5 months. That is dedication. And there really was a lot of content. When I say a lot of content, I mean a lot of content. I'm a full-time content creator, and I think he pumped out more content than I ever could over the past 5 months. This is all the content that he posted since May this year, and his 3 pinned posts are all very like, this was me being like X type of guy, like, or the guy from high school or college or whatever that looked like this, and now I am a woman who looks like this. They were that kind of vibe. There's over 130 posts on his Instagram about him being transgender, from photos to reels. That's a real huge amount of content. That's about, on average, 26 posts a month. So he was nearly posting something every single day for the past 5 months around being trans. That's really dedicated. He's often in different outfits as well, and yeah, it's interesting to look back on. And honestly, the initial reaction to him coming out seems overwhelmingly positive. When I looked back at the comments on his coming out post and like the subsequent videos after, most of them are very supportive from his followers and other people that saw it. "You have to do what makes you happy. Only you know what is right. You have my support always." Purple hearts. 100% want you to be happy. We're here to live in our truth and purpose. Praying for you, friend. Happy for you. Nothing but support. F yes, I was self-loathing for years, being raised in a strict religious household. No longer though. We are all stars. Live in your truth, walk in your light, and be loved as you deserve. You're absolutely beautiful despite how you identify, and I'm so happy for you. They're all very sweet. And there are a lot more, like the last one, of people opening up about their own experiences and relating to what he'd said in his coming out post. There was such a huge amount of support on his initial post in particular. I was surprised personally, and I'm not sure if maybe it is genuinely just it was that overwhelmingly supportive from the people who found the post, or if he maybe curated it to be more positive looking than it was initially, because I really couldn't find negative comments on that first post. But people really were opening up and being really supportive, and he was replying to a lot of people positively and being like, yeah, and thank you, and glad you found your truth too kind of vibe. But on later posts, negative comments definitely started coming in. Horrible, you look ridiculous, ridiculous, pal. Get some professional help. I mean, they're as unimaginative as you would expect transphobic comments to be. Seek help. Nasty. Bruh, you put lipstick on and talk with a fake voice and call yourself a woman? It's not trolls, it's the truth. I have no clue how women support this. No way. I used to follow you because you were such a hot man, but no more, so I'm sorry. For me and for you. That was just weird. What a waste of a man. Bring back bullying. Sending hate from Norway. Sending hate all the way from Norway. How lovely. These are all very typical transphobic comments that a lot of trans people experience and will be familiar to a lot of trans people. But then there were also people who were skeptical right from the beginning, right from his first coming out post to the initial few posts he did after that were photos and videos of him now transitioning. On an account that likes to ask polarizing questions, I can't help but wonder if this is an attempt to see how people react in the comments. Regardless, if this is your truth, then congrats. Also, know that living your truth can be a harder job than finding your truth. I think that's a pretty sweet comment. It's just slightly skeptical because of the type of content he posted before, which I'm not very familiar with at all because, like I said, I had no idea who this guy was before this thing. I'm convinced you're just doing this for clout. He's 100% mocking the trans community. I'm shocked at all of the people that are falling for this. Seeing some of the videos, I see where that person's comment was coming from, but I can also see where some people did fall for it and were accepting. I think most of these people were trans allies rather than trans people themselves, and really they were just showing that they were decent, accepting, compassionate human beings that didn't want to put another individual in a box that they maybe didn't belong in, and they were just like, okay, you do you. That's all cool, we accept that. And then I found a really interesting and insightful comment where somebody went into a lot of detail in a very kind way about how his content was coming off and the impact it could have. I understand that exploring your identity can be challenging, but it's important to recognize that being a trans woman involves more than just wearing makeup, jewelry, and women's clothing. Transitioning is a deeply personal and complex process that involves both inner and outer changes. I encourage you to seek support and guidance from the trans community to help you navigate this journey respectfully and authentically. The way you're presenting yourself on social media at this very moment might come off as a mockery to the trans community. This could inadvertently support harmful right-wing views that unfairly portray trans people as predators, suffer from mental illness, etc. Again, I encourage you to seek guidance from the trans community to ensure your journey is respectful and supportive of the broader trans rights movement and community that you are now a part of. Listen, I know you personally and I only wish you the very best in life and only want happiness for you. I feel like that is such a compassionate comment of just like, hey, I'm not disregarding your identity and I'm not hating on you. I'm just letting you know how the type of content you're making, maybe the language you're using and whatnot, is not the most respectful. You could really find community and support and advice from trans people. So I wanted to highlight the different kinds of reactions he had in the early days when he was posting about this. And scrolling through several of his posts and reading a bunch of comments, far more than I wanted to, it's honestly coming across that all he proved was that LGBT plus people and allies are compassionate and accepting when somebody comes out, but will call bullshit if something seems a bit off, and we'll give advice on that and we'll say, hey, I don't think you're doing this for the right reason. And I personally think his videos definitely came off as a parody a lot of the time, especially the later ones.
Hey everyone! So I just rented one of these shareable bikes and they're kind of useless. I gotta be honest, I hate having my male parts. It's such a drag. No pun intended, and it just really gets in the way and it's super annoying. So I feel like they need to make bikes that are more ergonomic and trans friendly. So drop a comment and let me know what you think. Bye everyone!
So I can see why people started calling it out. And the other thing he proved is that a bunch of right-wingers will be transphobic and will comment hate and puke emojis. He actually did speak about a month or so ago. There was an article, a couple articles about the hate that he's received since coming out, saying that he fears for his safety, he gets nervous in public, and he's worried that someone is going to hurt him. These are all very common things that a lot of trans people, particularly trans people in the early days of their transition, feel. Just wanted to point out that the article at the time used she, her pronouns because that's what he came out as, but I'm using he, him pronouns because he since said it was a hoax and he is not, in fact, a trans woman. And wow, good on him proving that some mainstream media outlets will respect trans people's pronouns. What a great gotcha moment for him. He even went on to open up about things like how some of his family members have been really supportive, such as his mother, who's very religious. He really went deep with this hoax and very personal and in a direction that a lot of trans people will have experienced themselves and would relate very hard to, which just makes it even more bizarre that it was a hoax. Like, to commit that hard and then not prove anything, or at least not prove anything that you wanted to prove, that must be tricky. A big thing that he spoke about and that comes up in articles and several of the posts that he did on Instagram was saying that you don't need to do anything in order to be a trans woman, and there's no one way to do it. I assume what he means by this is you don't need to take hormones and have surgery to be a valid trans person, and there is no one way of being trans or transitioning, which is all very true. It's actually one of the main messages in my book, that there is no one way to be trans, which is why I'm not the only voice in a book about trans people. And you also don't need to medically transition. You're trans because your gender doesn't match your assigned sex. And medically transitioning, like taking hormones and having surgery, and even socially transitioning, like coming out and living life as your correct gender, aren't things that actually make you trans or make you more trans. Transitioning is a path that a lot of trans people go down, and particularly with medically transitioning, this is because it alleviates things like gender dysphoria and can reduce levels of anxiety and depression and just overall improve the mental well-being of trans people. It's called the gender affirmative approach. It is the scientifically and medically approved approach for treating trans people. It's not something that makes people trans, it's just something that some trans people do. This point and his general appearance were also things that he received a lot of hate on, and he stated not being prepared for the amount of hate that he actually received. He shares about being told that, and I quote, "She can't be a woman because she is muscular," and being told she is not a real trans woman. I wonder if he ever stopped and thought for a moment, like, people are real mean to me because they think I'm transgender. Is this what actual trans people face? That must suck. It's not very nice that people are being mean to me over this. Oh, and then there's a bunch of people who are being really nice and compassionate towards me, but those are the people I've decided I'm going to mock with this whole social experiment I'm doing. Just bizarre. And he's not the only person recently to have pretended to be trans online. There seems to be a little bit of a pattern, with there being several instances of cis people pretending to be trans for various different reasons. He's saying his was a social experiment. There's been other ones who are doing it for OnlyFans. I'm confused as to why people are doing this, but what I'm more confused about is why not a single one of them seems to have cottoned on to just how much discrimination trans people face just for being themselves, and that maybe it's not okay that that happens. Them experiencing it firsthand, I'd maybe expect would give them some compassion towards the trans community, but it kind of feels like it's the opposite that happens. It doesn't feel like, even for a moment, any of these cis people who have pretended to be trans, face transphobia because of that, have at any moment gone, oh wow, I got death threats, I got abuse, I got hate, I got so much discrimination, I got treated like shit just because people believed I was trans. This is what genuine trans people must face, and surely nobody would choose to be trans and face this level of hate if they didn't have to. So therefore, maybe we should all be a little bit kinder to marginalized groups within society who are discriminated against. But no, instead many of them double down in their transphobia and then take the piss out of the very people who actually show them kindness and compassion. I definitely know where I want to be situated in life. I definitely know the kind of people I want to be surrounded by, and it's the type of people that do show others compassion and kindness, and not the type of people that hate on you and discriminate against you just for being yourself. So like, why when you can see those two polar opposite examples of humanity, you would choose to mock the kind people and side with the assholes? I just don't get it. Seiter stated that he got death threats from conservatives and hate from the LGBTQ+ community. I'm not saying he didn't receive hate from LGBTQ+ people or allies. I personally didn't see much. I saw people being questioning and calling him out and wondering if it was a hoax or not. But death threats from the phobes and hate from LGBTQ+ people. Okay. I think if there was any hate coming from LGBT+ people and allies, it started out very positively from what I can see in the comments. People were very supportive. And then over the 5 months of his content, it definitely seemed to increase in satire level. And I'm sure a lot of LGBT+ people and allies felt like he was taking the piss long before he confirmed that's what he was doing. His persona in the videos changed over time as well, and what he was saying, it felt like he was deliberately saying things to be controversial and wind people up. which doesn't necessarily mean that you're not trans, but just coupled with the general vibe of what was going on, I can see why it didn't sit right with some people. I had no idea it was going on before I read the articles, so I'm kind of retrospectively looking at the content, but already knowing the outcome. So I don't want to make a personal judgment, but they do seem to feel like they have a level of satire and parody to them and mocking, absolutely. And it makes sense that he would come across as if he were playing a character and making a mockery, because that seems to be the way he views trans women, as men playing pretend. We're all the same. We're all men putting on makeup and dresses and claiming we are women, and I hope that this could help some people understand that just because you put on dresses and makeup as a man doesn't magically make you a woman. This is a quote from the interview he did when he revealed it was a hoax, and very telling on where he was coming from with this whole experiment, and also very insightful to how misguided he is about the trans community and what it means to be trans, because this is very wrong. So yeah, earlier this month, he revealed that he's been pretending. He revealed the truth that he's been faking being trans for the past 5 months as a social experiment. I'm not really sure what a social experiment though, other than LGBT plus people and allies will be accepting and kind and accommodating to you until it's clear that you're taking the piss and you're not being nice. And transphobes are atrociously horrible to trans people. I'm not really sure what else he proved. Oh, and yes, putting on makeup and wearing a dress does not make you a woman. Trans people are very aware of that. That's not what being trans is. As part of his big reveal, he said he did it to expose how gullible and delusional the left is. But in an article last month when talking about all the hate he's received, he said that the abuse has been awful. It is a complete 180 from what has been represented to me my whole life, that the LGBT plus community is accepting and tolerant. So which is it? You've proved that the left is gullible and will believe you and accept you if you say you're trans, or you've proved that they're not as accepting as everybody says they are. Maybe at this point he didn't even know what he was trying to prove. But also I have several questions. And firstly, why would people not believe you? Why would they call you a liar immediately when all you've done is posted a coming out? Especially with the tone of this initial coming out text post. Seriously, why was there some big expectation and belief that people are extremely gullible / delusional for believing you? Secondly, the right-wingers who were hateful clearly believed him too. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been hateful, right? They were sending him transphobic hate because they believed he was trans. Did his experiment not therefore just prove that people of any political background and acceptance level will believe someone when they come out? Why are the left the only gullible ones? Because they were nice to him? I'm so lost, honestly. Like, anecdotally looking at his comments, it seems like there were more people who were accepting and questioning if he was faking than there were people who were being transphobic but also questioning if he was faking, if that makes sense. So I'm lost as to who he thinks is gullible. So he did this big reveal on a podcast earlier this month where he initially started the podcast wearing makeup and a scarf that was the colours of the trans flag. And a few minutes in, somebody came out and started wiping the makeup off, and then he wiped it off himself and the scarf came off and he was wearing like a shirt and a jacket and stuff. And he started explaining that it had been fake and it was an experiment.
Now you're saying this was all a ruse, this was a social experiment, and I know you studied sociology. Didn't you major in sociology?
I did. People can actually believe that biological men are magically transformed into women because they are having a gender crisis. So I hope I showed how ridiculous and absurd it is.
You did.
He said he faked being a faker, which I guess sums up his views on trans women, and is quite telling about where he was coming from with this. It honestly makes it sound like either he believes or he wants other people to believe that what he did is exactly the same as what trans women do, or any trans person. Just decided one day to be a woman, putting on a persona, playing pretend, wearing lipstick, wearing dresses, and bam, you're a woman, and oh look, the gullible left will believe that. But then also the transphobes will as well, because they're being transphobic to you. That is not what it means to be trans, that's not who trans people are, and that's not what trans people do. This is further evidenced by his statement that I read out earlier, but as a reminder, he said, "We're all the same, we're all men putting on makeup and dresses and claiming we are women, and I hope that this could help some people understand that just because you put on dresses and makeup as a man doesn't magically make you a woman." He is right, the way you dress, putting on makeup and dresses does not magically make you a woman. I agree with that statement, I just don't agree with how he then equates that to trans people. Really, he just proved the point that trans people don't choose to be trans and that we cannot choose our gender. And we're not playing dress up of a different gender just because we want to. He especially should have proved this to himself, pretending for 5 months to the internet to be a woman, dressing in a way that he perceived as stereotypically feminine, wearing lipstick, wearing makeup. None of that made him a woman. Being trans is not a choice, not a costume, not a fetish. It's a biologically and medically proven experience that some people have. Some people are just trans. It is another way of being human. He said the idea for the hoax came about when he was talking to friends and they were discussing how men do not magically become women, and then when they read some medical literature that trans people don't have to transition or undergo surgery to be considered valid. So that's when he thought he would prove how absurd this second statement was by pretending to be trans. I'm honestly still baffled by what he was trying to prove. There are some things that he did prove, but I don't think is what he meant to do. Like he's proved that he likely didn't understand the medical literature around trans people or anything to do with the trans experience, because like I said, being trans is not dependent on whether you medically transition or not. And Seiter seems to have conflated the act of medically transitioning with becoming transgender. I think that's what's coming across anyway. I wonder what his opinion is of trans people who have medically transitioned, because this does seem to be a bit of a main point of his social experiment. He also compared being transgender to mental illness such as schizophrenia. I guess if he'd really read the medical literature properly, he'd have known that the American Psychiatric Association states that neither gender dysphoria nor being trans is classified as a mental illness. He'd have also realized many of the other facts surrounding being trans, including the positive effects of transitioning both socially and medically, the low regret rates, and the negative impact that discrimination can have. Since it's been revealed that this is a hoax, many people have rightly criticized his hoax with statements including, he pretended to be trans online for 6 months and liberals left kind comments and conservatives left cruel comments. Groundbreaking. Thanks, Josh. Many emphasize that mocking genuinely transgender people reflects poorly on Seiter himself. It does. And other people have said, it's truly sad that you mock transitioning. It's harmful to a community that already faces many obstacles just trying to live authentically. Even on the tabloid The New York Post profile on platform X, which often presents a sensationalist conservative viewpoint, the most popular comments were those criticizing Seiter's behavior. One notable comment read, "They accepted me," is a strange attempt at mockery. Haha, I caught you. You were nice to me. Wait, what? I agree entirely. Anyone praising this hoax he did is as confused as Seiter is about what it means to be trans and what an actual and good social experiment is. This just felt like somebody going very hard in, like really hard in, on their own very wrong narrative of the trans community for reasons that I don't think we'll ever fully understand, but it totally backfired. For people who have the same mindset as him and the same view of the trans community, they'll be like,
oh wow, what an interesting social experiment. Yeah, look, you owned those leftists.
But for anybody who's trans, LGBT+, a trans ally, is very clear that this proved nothing that he wanted it to prove. He proved nothing except some conservatives are hugely hateful towards the trans community. LGBT+ people and allies will be accepting if you come out as trans, that he understands nothing about the trans community or experience. And yeah, putting on a dress and lipstick does not make you a woman. Trans women are women because they are, not because of how they dress. Just like cis women who present in a very masculine way are still women. They're not suddenly men just because of their gender expression. Transphobes time and time again get this very confused, where they think gender identity and gender expression are the same thing or inexplicably linked to one another and they must impact each other at all times, when in reality gender identity and gender expression are two entirely separate things and are not and do not have to be reliant on one another. Your expression does not dictate your identity, and your identity does not have to dictate your expression, but there are a lot of societal pressures and expectations over expression matching somebody's identity, but it doesn't have to. In conclusion, pretending to be trans to try and catch people out is very bizarre behavior, and it literally proves none of the things that transphobes think it proves. It just shows them up as knowing very, very little about something they're trying to run a social experiment on, and just at the end of the day looking very bizarre in the process. I don't know where this is going to go next. I think by the time this video comes out, it's going to be well over a week, like well over 10 days, maybe even closer to 2 weeks since the 15th of October, which is when Josh Seiter first revealed that it was a hoax and he'd been faking being trans. And as of the day I'm recording this video, it's been about 10 days or so since he revealed that it was all a hoax and he's not actually trans, but all of the trans content is still up on his page. I wonder how long that's gonna last, if he's just gonna leave it there. I don't know. Is this part of the social experiment that it just becomes permanently on the internet? Yeah, it was very, very interesting in a bad way thing to do, and I wanted to talk about it. So thank you so much for sticking through this video. If you liked it, think about giving a thumbs up and subscribing, but no pressure. If you want to join the conversation, then go leave a comment down below. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Much love. Bye.